Hello everyone, Sean from TaekwondoSean.com. Today we're looking into Poomsae. Check it out. Alright, so what is Poomsae first? Poomsae is a pattern, motions, a combination of blocks, attacks, stances, kicks, punches, all those things put into a choreographed motion as if we're trying to fight some opponents. Each Poomsae begins with blocks because Taekwondo itself is a self-defense martial art. So we'll never start any Poomsae with an attack or a kick, only blocks. So one way to learn Poomsae is just to do it over and over and over again, start to finish, again and again and again. And that's great because you're putting in the reps. And you know what? As martial artists, as physical training, we know that that is how we're gonna get better and that's how we're gonna improve. However, there might be a faster way. There might be a more effective way. This way is where we chunk it down into pieces. And then we practice each piece until it's good, and then we move on to the next piece. That's what we do when we train here in our dojang. So how do we break it down? Well, let's say Poomsae number 1, Taegak Iljang. So in our dojang, we train them as yellow belts for this Poomsae. This Poomsae has 18 motions, and we break it up into 3 parts. 6, 6, 6. So let's imagine today in this video, we're going to break down Poomsae number 1 for you, and then we're going to learn it step by step and follow the procedures of how we practice, focusing on different things. When we're starting, we focus on our body parts in chunks. Taekwondo means the way of the foot and the way of the fist, right? So let's break up the Poomsae that way too. So we're going to call it, instead of the fist, upper body, and instead of the foot, lower body. So upper body is going to cover any blocks or any strikes, and then lower body is going to cover any stances or any kicks. And then we're going to put them together, and then those 6 motions, the first chunk is going to be awesome. So let's get started. We're going to start by focusing on our lower body, okay? Because just like buildings, we start with the foundation and we build the way up. So we're going to start by focusing on the first 6 motions of the first Poomsae, and we're going to go motion by motion, making sure those 2 stances are good. So let's start. Let's make sure I can see my feet. So chayat, 준비. We breathe in and breathe out. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn and make sure our walking stance is 1 foot apart. Then we perform the down block. Our upper body is really loose and relaxed. From here, we're going to step forward and punch. Again, looking down, making sure our walking stance is good. We want 1 foot in between our feet to make a nice walking stance. And then we turn, down block, step forward, punch. Each motion, making sure our stances are good. And then the last motion for the first 6 blocks, the last motion for the front stance, down block and punch. Good. And then paro. So now that we got stances, so let's practice a couple more times, looking down as we do it. All right, so now that we've broken it down a couple of times into the stances, let's focus on our pivoting. When we pivot in Taekwondo, we want to make sure we pivot on the balls of our feet, like this. So this time when I do the Poomsae, I turn my left foot first, and while I'm hanging on the balls of my feet, and I perform my down block, I pivot on the ball of my back foot. Then I step forward, punch. Good, now this pivot, I'm going to turn, pivot as I perform my block. Step forward, punch. Good. Then from here, I'm going to pivot my back foot as my hand comes down, and then punch. Good, let's do it one more time. Again, we're going to focus on pivoting. Ready? Good. All right. We're doing really good so far. So now that we got the lower body, we're going to start to add the upper body techniques as well. So first, I'm going to make sure my blocks and my punches are punching and blocking in the right places. So let's look at the down block first. Whenever I do my down block, I'm starting on top of my shoulder. Am I following the arm down? Am I putting the other fist on my belt? That's very important. Is my other fist staying inside my body line? I don't want my down block to wander away. And then, is it close enough to my leg? Usually I want 1, 2 fists away from my leg when I do my down block. Okay? When I punch, am I punching from my belt or am I punching from somewhere else? When I punch, am I twisting at the end? Am I punching the lower and in the middle? I'm punching the vital spot, the myungchi. Am I punching the solar plexus, or in Korean, the myungchi? So punch my shoulder, down, and in the center, every single time. So now let's try and get the blocks in the right position while still doing my good stances and pivoting. So ready? 준비. So I turn and pivot. And I look down, make sure my fist is in the right place. Then I step forward and I punch. Good. Am I punching the center? My solar plexus is my other fist on the belt. From here, I turn around and I practice my pivot and my down block properly. And my 2 fists away, looking good. Step forward and punch. Is my other hand on my belt? Is my shoulder out slightly? Okay. Then I turn, pivot, down block. Is my down block 2 fists away from my knee? Good. And punch. Am I punching the solar plexus? Good. All right, so then we practice that a couple of times with the upper body and the lower body now put together somewhat. Let's do it a couple of times. All right, so now that we've practiced the upper body, making sure the attacks and the blocks are in the right places, now we start to add power by adding speed, or adding our power at the very end of a motion. So the power that you get in Taekwondo is from what's called the kinetic chain, okay? So a chain of joints in your arm, and then the kinetic power, meaning movement power. So from here, if I relax my arms, and then I can perform my down block and add power only at the end when I do it. So now I'm going to try and add that power and make that uniform snap. So activating the kinetic chain and applying your power at the right point is actually what makes the uniform snap. Okay? So when you're training and you hear the higher belts, they're making the uniforms wha-pow, wha-pow, wha-pow. This is how you do it. So now let's practice with a little bit of the kinetic chain, a little bit of relaxing and power, with the upper body now snapping. Okay? So ready? We're going to focus on pivoting, stances, blocks, attacks, and snap. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, paro. All right, so let's practice that a couple of times. Try to make sure you're using your hip power. Try to make sure you're turning your body. Try to make sure you're relaxed throughout the Poomsae and you're snapping at the end. So ready? Let's practice a couple of times together. All right, great. So we got our stances, we got the pivoting, we got the blocks and the punches in the right spot. We're now snapping the uniform. It's looking good. So now the first 6 motions of the Poomsae are almost perfect. So it's at this point, after training for a long time, practice, practice, practice. It might be multiple weeks, it might be multiple classes, it might be multiple training on the mats, but at one point, you're gonna master all the first 6 motions. And then when you do, we're gonna move on to the next 6 motions, and then the last 6 motions, and then you try adding them all together. So when you're practicing the second batch, we wanna make sure that you don't practice the first batch too much. You take that, file it away, and only practice the first, or the second, you only practice the second 6 motions. Now the reason is, we can't focus on too much at once. We're really bad at multitasking. So if you guys are doing the first 6 motions over and over again, number 1, you're spending less time on the middle 6 motions. Number 2, you're gonna lose that focus by the time you get to the second 6 motions. Okay? So when you're practicing the second 6 motions of the Poomsae, try to only practice that section. And then when that's perfect, you got the stances, you've got the pivoting, you've got the blocks and the punches all in the right spots. You got the snap power in there. Then you combine to make the first 12 motions, so the first 2/3 of the Poomsae. And then file those away, practice the third and final part of the Poomsae over and over and over again. This part includes a kick. So we're gonna cover that now with kicks and how to include the kicks in the training. And then when you're done with those 6, you add it all together, and your habomnim, or your Taekwondo instructor, Taekwondo master, is gonna be so impressed. Okay, so let's do it. Let's add kicks now. So whenever you add a kick to a Taekwondo Poomsae, it's very important how we set up the next motion. So let's say we're at the last and final 6 motions. I'm gonna turn left, and I'm gonna pivot. At the same time I perform my high block, Now from here, I'm gonna bring my arms to a neutral position in front of me here. From here, I'm gonna pivot this foot as I perform my front kick, my up chagi. And then when I'm done, I'm gonna gently pull my right fist back to my hips, and my left fist goes in front, so I'm able to pull it. This is my neutral position. As the balls of my foot hit the ground, I get ready to center myself, and now on the other side, let's try. So ready, set, pivot. Then from here, arms in the neutral position, front kick, belt, punch. Okay, so let's practice just adding the kick now a little bit for a couple of motions. Ready? All right, that was Poomsae number 1, and that was how we break down our Poomsae, how we're gonna practice now in chunks, focusing on Taekwondo, the way we use our lower body, followed by the way we use our upper body, and then we put it all together to make the way that we do Poomsae. Okay, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave it below, and I'll go through them with you guys. We'll work through this, and let's all become better at Taekwondo together. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Train hard, and see you on the mats.